Everyone, so today in math we're going to do lesson 1.3, which is called compare and order numbers. So what we're learning today, or our essential question, is how can you compare and order numbers? So think about for a second, what does it mean to compare something? What does it mean to put something in order, especially when we're talking about numbers? So if we're comparing something, we use symbols like this, and they probably look familiar because you probably used them before in third and maybe even second grade. So we use the less than symbol to help us compare numbers. So in this example, it's saying 37 is less than 80, right? Because this has less tens, so that makes it less than this number. The other symbol we use to help us compare numbers is greater than. So like in this example, 61 is greater than 8, because this one doesn't even have any tens, right? So obviously this one's bigger. And then the last symbol we use to help us compare numbers is the equal to sign. So 3 is equal to 3. It's the same exact number, so they are equal. In ordering numbers, we can either put them in order from least to greatest or greatest to least. So if I ask, if I give you 3 numbers and put them in order from smallest to biggest, that means put them in order from the least value to the greatest value. So before we jump into the next slide, I just want to play a little game with you guys. And so this is kind of working with smaller numbers, 3-digit numbers up to 1,000. We're going to obviously look at bigger numbers in 4th grade, but just to kind of warm up our brains and thinking about place value, thinking about comparing numbers. So in this game, they use these, they're kind of like Legos looking things, right? So they build a number for us. So in this case, it's 491. And this is what 491 looks like. And remember in the first lesson, we used base 10 blocks, right? So the orange ones are kind of like our flats, our hundreds. The long gray ones are kind of like the tens, the longs that we used. And then the little light gray one is our ones, kind of like the little small cubes. So these are a really nice visual representation of the number 491. And that helps us when we are comparing it to another number. So if drawing pictures help you, that's a cool strategy too. So like in this one, you see how many orange flats. You should see 9 of them because those represent 900. And then how many longs do you see? You should see 5 because there's 5 tens or 50. And then you should see 1 because there's a 1 in the ones place. So this represents 951. So looking at the models, we can kind of tell which one is less, which one is greater. They're obviously not equal because this one doesn't have as much, it seems, right? But looking at place value too, we can compare the first digit. So looking at the hundreds place, there's a 4 in this number. Looking at the hundreds place here, there's a 9. So which number is greater, 4 or 9? Hopefully you know 9 is greater than 4, right? But keep in mind that we can compare the 4 to the 9 only because they're in the same place. They're both in the hundreds place. If it was in a different place, we couldn't as easily compare it, and I'll explain that later. So in this case, is 491 greater than, equal to, or less than 951? And I think it's pretty obvious for this one that this number is less than. So let's see if we got it right.
That's correct.
We got it.
Is 607 greater than, equal to, or less than 787?
Yes, it even reads it for us.
When you have the answer, tap the check mark.
So in this case, you can see that there are 6 hundreds, and then they have 7 ones connected together here. So that's 607. Here we have 787. So really all we have to do is look at that first place again. Always start on the left side of the numbers when you're thinking place value, when you're comparing numbers, because that's where the greatest value is. So you can easily compare the hundreds here. We don't even have to worry about looking at the tens or the ones because I can already see 6 is a smaller number than 7. So that means that this whole number is greater than this number. So I'm going to say 607 is less than 787.
Good work. Is 248 greater than, equal to, or less than 248?
So what do you notice about
When you
these
have the
two
answer,
numbers?
tap the check mark.
248, 248. It's the same exact number. So in this case, I would say they're equal.
That's correct.
We got it. So we could play again, but I think you guys get the idea. And you can find the link to this game if you want to practice a little bit more in the slides. I'll upload the slides, and then if you click on this box, you'll find that link. So if you want to play that game later, you should, so that you can get some extra practice. All right, so let's jump into the lesson. So one way that we can compare numbers is using a place value chart. And we did that a little bit in our minds while we were playing that game, thinking about place value. So let's read this problem, and then we're going to use place value to help us decide which number is greater, less, or equal. So it says the Grand Canyon National Park in Arizona had 651,028 visitors in July 2008 and 665,188 visitors in July 2009. In which year did the park have more visitors during the month of July? All right, so we're going to use this place value chart to help us decide which is the greater number. So we're going to use a place value chart because it helps us line up the place values by plugging in the digits into this chart, and it helps us easily compare them. You have to make sure that when you're comparing numbers using a place value chart, you want to line up the numbers by their place values. So you want to make sure that the digit in the 100,000s place goes in the 100,000s place. Make sure that you're putting it in the right spot. Because if you accidentally put that 6, let's say, like in the 100 place over here, it's going to change the value of the number completely. So we just want to make sure we're plugging in each number in the right spot. So if you can pause the video for a second and think about how we're going to put these numbers into the place value chart. You could either write this on your whiteboard, you could write this on paper pencil, or you could do it in your head if you would like, but try to think about what that would look like in the place value chart. All right, so you should have paused the video and thought about how we can put these two numbers into the place value chart so that we can compare them. So we start at the left and compare the digits in each position. So starting at the left side, I would start with the 100,000s place. And I think I'm going to click to the next part so we can see it. So your place value chart should look like this. And so when we look at the very left number, what do you notice? They're both 6, right? So can I really tell the difference between the two or say, oh yeah, this one's bigger than that? No, because they're the same. So if you find that the digit is the same in the same place value, you have to go to the number next door. And then you might see a difference. If you don't, then you have to keep going until you find a number that's different that you could compare. So right here, I noticed that the 10,000s place has different digits. This one has a 5 and this one has a 6. So that means I could compare these two places. So right now, I would say thinking with these two that they're the same and thinking here with 5 or 6, I would say 5 is less than 6, right? 5 has less value than a 6. So that means that this whole number, 651,028, is less than the number 665,188 because it has less 10,000s than this number does. So even if we kind of ignored those numbers for a second, think about it. 651 is less than 665, right? Because 6 tens is greater than 5 tens. So I skipped over to here. So the second step, we would say that the 5 10,000s is less than 6 10,000s. So therefore, that means that that whole number, 651,028, is less than 665,188. Did we even have to bother looking at the thousands, the hundreds, the tens, the ones? You should be thinking, no, we didn't even have to look at those. So as soon as you see a difference, that's when you can start comparing the two numbers. You don't even really have to worry about the rest of the numbers once you find that difference. When we first looked at it, yeah, we had to keep going because these were the same. That didn't help us compare them, right? And then going into the next place value, when you spot that difference, that's when you can compare them and find which one is less and which one is more. You can also use a number line to help you find comparing numbers, or in this case, ordering them. So this example wants us to put these three numbers in order from least to greatest. And it looks like they even plotted the first one for us. So that's a little less work for us. So the number 10,408, they put right here. So let's first see how this number line works. You want to make sure you're paying attention to what the number line is counting by. Sometimes it counts by 5, sometimes they count by tens, sometimes they even count by hundreds. So you want to make sure you're figuring out what's the value of each of these little tick marks when you use a number line. And also remember that all numbers closer to the left are closer to 0. So the less numbers, the least amount, should always be on the left side, and the bigger numbers end up being on the right side. So the cool thing about a number line, once you plug them in and plot them, they're already in order from least to greatest for you. All right, so they said that it goes here. Let's see why. The first number in the number line is 10,400. Then the next number here jumps an additional 10. See how it went from 400 to 410? So that means that this halfway mark must be a 5. So it's 10,405. So that must mean all these individual little tick marks are an additional 1. So that would be 10,400, skip to 10,405, 10,406, 10,407, 10,408. So that's why that one goes there. So that's how this number line works. So where would 10,433 go? Why don't you pause the video? That might help. And you can use your finger on the screen to kind of like help you jump around and find where would this one go. So remember that these are going by increments of 10, half is 5, and each little individual tick mark is 1. So see if you can find where 10,433 goes on this number line. Okay, you should have paused the video, and I'm going to help and see if you were right. So 10,433. So I see that they all have the hundreds place as a 4. So I want to look at the tens. This is a 3. So where do you see 3 as the tens? So this one has 2, and there it is right there, 10,430. I want 10,433. So should I jump all the way to the halfway mark? No, right? Because that'd be 10,435. That's too big. I want 33. So we could go back to 2, and that would be the spot. Or you could start here and count 3. 10,430, 31, 32, 33. So the next place would go right there. And I'll click to the next slide so we can see in a second. But let's find that last one, 10,416. So pause the video again and see if you can find where this one goes. And remember, look at the 10, because that's where you see the difference. They all have a 4 in the hundreds place, right? But where do you see a 10 and then count on 6 more? Or you could find the halfway point, 15, and then count 1 forward. So pause and see if you can find that one. All right, so you should have paused to find this. And so I'm going to jump right to the 10 here, because remember there's a 1 in the tens place, so that means 10. And I want to go 6 more to get 16. So it would be 10,415. It would be a whole jump to the halfway point, or you could count by ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then one more would be our 6. So that would be 10,416. So let's see if we got them right. And there it is. So our first one we said goes here, and the next one goes here. So now look at, they're all in order from least to greatest for us just by putting them on a number line. So we found out to put them in order from least to greatest, we would say 10,410 is the least, then comes 10,416, and then the greatest is 10,433. And so that's how you would put them in order. Typically you put at least like a comma or a semicolon in between when you're doing a list of order, or you could use the symbols like this. 10,408 is less than 10,416, which is less than 10,433. So commas, semicolons, or using the symbols are ways that you could list numbers in order. All right, so now I want you to give it a try. I gave you some numbers to compare, and you're going to use those symbols we used today: less than, greater than, or equal to. So there's 3 problems here. Why don't you pause the video, and you could do these on your whiteboard or on paper pencil. Thinking about place value, you could line them up by lining up the place values, kind of like how we did earlier by putting one on top of the other to look at the different place values. Or if you wanted to draw a number line, that one might be a little bit more work. Place value might be a little bit easier. And try to solve these, and I'll show you the answers in the next slide, but try it out on your own first. Okay, so you should have paused the video to solve these 3. So the first one, you're looking at 34,562, comparing it to 32,322. So if you use place value, you probably saw, well, the first digit, they're the same. The 10,000s have the same value. So does that help us compare these 2 numbers? No. If they're the same, we got to keep going. So then we look to the thousands place. There's a 4 and there's a 2. Do you spot a difference? Yes. 4 is bigger than 2, right? So that means that this whole number is bigger or greater than this whole number. Again, we don't even have to look at the hundreds, the tens, or the ones, because we spotted the difference right there. And that's why we go from left to right when we're comparing, because we want to look at the biggest place value first. So that one is greater. Let's try these. We have 500,002 and 500,032. So can you spot the difference in these 2 numbers? If we start at the left, look at this has the same value for the first 4 numbers. The 100,000s, 10,000s, thousands, and hundreds all have the same value. But look at the tens. Do you notice the difference? This one has a 0 in the tens. This one has a 3 in the tens. So that means that this whole number is bigger because it has 3 and this one has a 0. We couldn't use the first 4 numbers to help us because they were all the same. But as soon as you spot that difference, again, that's where you can really compare. So we would say 500,002 is less than 500,032. And then the last one was 344,444. And you're comparing it to, it looks like the same exact number. See how they have all the same digits? So that means these would be equal. So your answers should look like this. All right. All right, so now that takes us to your independent practice. And again, these slides will be attached to the assignment. So you can go directly to these slides to click on this link to bring you to Think Central. Or if you saved it by bookmarking it, you could just go there or type it in. It's also in our virtual classroom. So wherever you can find the link for Think Central, the login information is all on Google Classroom as well. If you have any trouble getting on, just let me know. You're going to complete the assignment on Think Central, also do the attached exit slip, and if you are a remote-only kid, then you could do some extra practice in your workbook as well if you want some extra practice. But the hybrid kids, you guys leave your workbooks at home. I mean, not at home, at school. So don't worry about the extra practice, just because I don't want you guys to have to cart it back and forth from home to school and forget it and things like that. So you would have to complete just these 2 assignments. All right, so if you guys have any questions, you can message me or go to the after school 2-hour window for the remote only students if you had trouble and need more explanation. Good luck, have fun, and I will talk to you guys later.